Everybody, this is David coming to you today from Otter's Pond Bed and Breakfast on Orcas Island here in the state of Washington, San Juan Islands, for MSOM 601. And I wanted to give you a preview for Module 4. Module 4 talks about valid and warranted inferences. Valid and warranted inferences. Chapter 8 deals with the valid inferences. Chapter 9 deals with the warranted inferences. One of the things I wanted to mention before I get into the discussion of the application this week is to talk a little bit about these inferences. One of the things that you may read in some of your research, and the text talks briefly about it, is the whole idea of causation. Causation. And when you talk about causation, it's about, did this particular activity cause this particular result? And many times in the statements, I shouldn't say many times, that's a definitive word. Sometimes, just caught myself, right? Sometimes if you look at these things, you may understand that one activity cannot be proven to cause a specific result. Now, we're in the process right now of going through this whole Trump-Russia thing, right, and the Democratic National Committee and all of those things. And so a lot of people are throwing, some people, not a lot, some people are throwing things out that would say, this particular activity caused this. Well, the first thing that you have to do to determine causation is to determine whether or not the situation that happened actually happened. So in this case, was there an incident of Russian interference? Did Russian interference happen? And so before you can make a causation or a causal statement saying that this caused this, you have to prove whether or not this happened first, right? And so that's the important thing before people jump to conclusions in critical thinking. Make sure that you prove the issue that you are saying or someone else may be saying caused the effect. And so begin to understand those pieces. And then if you start looking at things, I used to develop what are called decision trees as I would help solve problems for companies, for the people that I work for. And if you did that, you would say, if this happened, then you have one or two results. If the answer is yes, you go down this pathway. Yes, it did happen. Well, yes, it did happen, then you have a whole lot more questions to answer to develop connections. If no, it did not happen, then many times, and I will use the word many here, then the entire argument can stop there, because if this situation never happened, then you cannot make a causal statement about it. I hope I haven't confused you, but one of the things that will be key is to make sure that you read in great depth chapters 8 and 9 that talk about valid inferences and warranted inferences. The discussion this week talks about how to evaluate the logical strength of inferences to see if their conclusions are valid, and that's kind of what I've been talking about. And then also to use the impact of definitive words, which I've been trying to correct myself on as I go through this as well, that we talked about last week. Okay, so that's the discussion board. The application talks about fallacies that may be masquerading as valid or warranted inferences. One of the key things that I want you to do is to make sure before you get into your written work on your paper this week, make sure that you define the terms in your paper first. Make sure that you define fallacies. Make sure that you define valid and inferences, warranted inferences before you go into applying them. Okay? And then describe these situations that you see. This will be one where it would be a great idea to use some examples. Now again, this is one you need to write in third person, so don't use personal examples, or if you do use personal examples, then write them as if they were not personal examples, but are third party related. Okay? A couple of miscellaneous things this week. Make sure you continue to look at my comments in the gradebook. I go into a lot of detail. I appreciate those of you who have looked at those and then corrected papers for Module 3. I noticed some big improvements in some areas on that. And then make sure that you look at the paper formats. I'm doing a lot of things on format and flow, making a lot of comments on format and flow, and making a lot of comments on the use of headings to help walk your reader through what you're trying to say and make it easier for them to follow you in your paper and your written work. Okay? Hope this hasn't been confusing. If it has been, reach out to me and I'd love to hear from you. Okay? Chat with you soon and have a great week.